I think this is my favorite spot to go sit out and take in the outlying town. Um, I like to sit here because it's never too busy in town, but this part in particular where you can like look over it, it's like the least busy part. I don't know what goes on in these buildings. There's a bowling alley-esque place over there, but none of them are popping off, let's say. Um, this part right here, it's just kind of it's just kind of serene. Like it looks, almost like almost dead. Um, one of the things that I like about the upstate New York and also the New England area is that you see shit like that just all over the place. Like random churches that, were built in like the 1800s, the 1700s, that look very old, very European. And like sometimes buildings that aren't even churches, they're just literally castles. Like you walk around and you'll just see random castles around. Um, and it's really comfy in that sense. Um, I was on my way into town again to look for work again because um, I've applied to like 40 or 50 different places by now, but I'm still trying to get those numbers up. So I've been spending just about the entirety of my days looking around, asking around, and I thought I'd sit in this spot again to take in the town because pretty soon it's gonna start getting really really cold here. I mean it's cold right now. I have on my Soviet military surplus to stay toasty, but like it's about to get really really cold here again. Um, and when it starts snowing, it's like it's going to be really snowing, like with heavy wind and whatnot. And so, um, part of me is looking forward to that in the sense that like the snow is beautiful, especially with the kind of trees they have up here. But another part of me is very much not looking forward to it because of the wind. Because like I have to walk in that shit. But it is what it is. Like at least there's a bus. That's the way I look at it, is at least there's a bus that services all of the outlying towns as well as this town. You take a gander at the schedule and you pretty much immediately get it. It's nothing complicated. Um, but it's also not like anything I'm used to. Like, when I was in Burlington, Vermont, um, I had trouble comprehending the bus schedule, like having to memorize where all the streets were that the bus would stop at in order to transfer to the other buses to get where you wanted to go. Like, it was fine because the bus was free there. Like it was free at the point of service, so you could ride it all day if you wanted to. It didn't matter. But um, it was still a little overwhelming for me as someone who had to be shepherded around in a vehicle my whole life by somebody else. Um, this is kind of a uniquely American, and I suppose for much of Canada, Canadian psychological phenomenon where you begin to literally want to escape from freedom. Like, I remember when I went to Europe the first time and I had to navigate the public transit there. and I had all this wide open space I could walk around in that, I wasn't designated to be anywhere. I didn't, have to be in a car for a significant amount of time, really no amount of time. I could just go anywhere. Like, I remember stepping out into the sunlight, taking in the air, and being like so startled that it felt as though there were these invisible walls just collapsing around me, like crushing me. Like, it felt like I couldn't breathe, and that was, just from being outside of my room. It felt like reminiscent of those videos of like apes that are kept in captivity, where the moment that they're let out of their cage or let outside, like, they get so terrified. You can see how terrified they are on their face. They just, want to go back into their cage. And I think that was the general experience that I had just about every time I went out for the last couple years. It's really been only in the last year that I've got accustomed to and acquainted with being outdoors, to the point where actually I prefer being outdoors. I spent so much of my time inside growing up, just stuck inside, forced to be inside, with nowhere to go, that the moment I stopped being scared of being outside, it was like I just wanted to be outside constantly. Like, one of the things I told my roommate here before coming and then also after coming here was I spend most of my time outside. Then, one day I was sitting out on a chopped down tree in the park. He walked over and he found me there, and he was like, "Are you just sitting out here?" And I was like, "Yeah, I told you I spend most of my time outside." I wasn't fronting. Like, there's not a place I would rather be. If I need to do something digitally, I can access it through my phone. That's part of the wonder of us walking around with computers in our pockets all the time. But for the most part, I don't even need to. All of the information I could hope to access, I could go to the library and find. Or, if I need to ponder a pertinent question, there's always just my own head. If I need to get somewhere, I can depend on my two legs for that. I remember my old roommate in Wyoming, there was something he said to me that I found really striking, where he said, people who live in places with a lot of public transit are trained to rely on others to get where they need to go. They're trained to rely on that system. But if that system were to ever break down at any point, they would have no idea how to get to where they want to get to. I found this really strange, not for the obvious reasons like public transit is always being maintained and there's an active economic incentive for it to be maintained by the city authorities, but because of the simple fact that you're relying on an automobile if you're not relying on that you have to pay someone else for when money and resources are finite in the first place. You have to rely on the distributors who provide gasoline to continually do that. You have to rely on your employer to pay you so you have the consistent resources for that gasoline, not to mention the upkeep of your car. If your car breaks down, then who are you going to rely on? I think this notion that vehicles are like the gateway to being free, that you're more free if you're to drive around places, is just complete and utter nonsense. The only thing I rely on is myself, because I'm relying on my 2 feet. As long as I have these legs, I can go anywhere I want to go. That is self-reliance. It's not having to rely on a car that, took 40 or 30 different countries in the process with all of their, intricate supply chains that could go down at any point. Just look at what happened with COVID. The supply chains got fucked. Then look at how expensive cars got. Then look at how expensive gas got. Like, those things down there, those gigantic machines, that's not freedom. Walking the way I got to get right here is freedom. Yeah. I guess I went from smoke grass to touch grass at the end of the day.